Good morning, everyone. Good morning if you're in Hong Kong, and good evening if you're in the US. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Qu Chang. I'm Parasite's curator, and today we're very happy to have Ali Wong Kit Yi to host us at her studio visit. And we are also extremely honored to have Mr. Michael Findlay to join us today as special visitor and special speaker today. I'd like to make it more formal today by giving an official introduction to our two speakers. So here we go. Ali Wong Kit Yi is an artist, lives and works between New York and Hong Kong, exploring biological answers to metaphysical questions. She deals with odd scientific findings and the dysfunctional relationship between what is considered science and pseudoscience. Wong also investigates the contractual relationship, working with such idea as patron collaboration through the 1990-year leases for her artworks. Her interests are always subject to change. And Michael Findlay is a director of Aquavella Galleries, which specializes in Impressionist and modern European works of art and post-war American painting and sculpture. Findlay directed one of the first galleries in Soho in the 1960s. Mr. Findlay is the president of the Art Dealers Association of American Foundation and is on boards of the New York Foundation for the Arts, Christie's Education and the British School and University Foundation, and is on the advisory council of the Appraisers Association of America. His first book, The Value of Art, is in its 5th printing and have been translated into German, Spanish, Japanese, and Korean. His second book, Seeing Slowly, Looking at Modern Art, will be published in Chinese in 2020. Michael has a very long resume, so I'm sorry, Michael, for shortening it a little bit here. And then I'd like to talk about our structure of the visit today. So first, Ali is going to give us a presentation of around 20 to 30 minutes, and then we move into a conversation among Michael and I and Ali, and then we move into Q&A session, during which time we hope everyone can be put on a mute mode just to ensure the audio experience throughout the visit is ideal. And then during Q&A session, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions directly. And during the visit, please also feel free to leave your questions or comments in the chat box, and then we can talk about them during Q&A session. So Ali, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Parasite and Gogo, for having me. Thank you, Michael, for actually staying up and losing your beauty sleep. Since this is the Parasite event, I would like to actually start by talking about a work commissioned by Parasite as part of the exhibition In Search of Miss Ruthless in 2017. I'm going to read part of the statement for that show to give you a context of the work. Okay, here we go. An extended investigation in beauty as an out-of-body experience. One series of 5 commissioned works that touch on genetic, activist, and legal aspects beyond the female body per se. While DNA reversing the error of time tells the possibilities of genetically modified beauties, and the ugly beauty evaluates the elusive qualities of attraction. So each print photograph has lyrics written by Wong engraved on a UV plexiglass surface, including lyrics inspired by the interview with Miss Hong Kong Louisa Mott herself. These works are also paired with a song, and the music is made in collaboration with Kyle Oppenheimer. Actually, the song that you just listened to while waiting at the beginning is paired with this work, DNA Reversing the Error of Time. I'm actually, I study sculpture, and somehow I'm not, but I'm not very interested in like in animate objects. I'm more interested in like object that can move. That was one of my early ventures into performative objects. Maybe starting around like 2016. So apparently this work is moving. The work engages with the bodies of the audience. Their reaction towards the work is not only through vision, it's not only through your eyes, but also through a sliding movement of their arms, suggested by the frames. Uh, uh, this is a walking person, me, involving in a much greater and freer degree of movement. This is a performance that I actually did like a long time ago. I did it in like 11 years ago in Hong Kong public space during the summer of 2009, when the swine flu epidemic was really bad. So at that time, there were also debates around whether masks were useful in defending one's health during the epidemic. So this work is basically a response or reaction to the debate with, I'm trying to add a sense of humor in it. So the title is called I Wear Face Mask. I literally wore 118 face masks as qipao, the traditional Chinese dress. And walk around Hong Kong. So in a way that I somehow, become this like walking sculpture in the urban setting, in the city landscape. And apparently this is the artifact that remains. When the epidemic becomes a pandemic, as the one we are all experiencing now, one's movement over large distances is heavily restricted. As we were all staying home and not going anywhere, I was commissioned by the Public Art Fund to participate in an exhibition called Art on the Grid, which is an open air exhibition, or basically outdoor exhibition, in response to the temporary closure of museums, as well as the Black Lives Matters protests happening in the cities during the COVID pandemic. Public often insert artwork in public spaces. Sorry, is someone talking? Keep going, all right? Sorry, so public often insert artwork in public space on more than 500 bus shelter location, and they are currently on view and will run till this fall. So, so for people who travel a lot, so for people who travel a lot, jet lag is the very fabric of their everyday reality. But with the pandemic keeping everyone at home, there's no need to actually get used to new time zones because we are all stuck in one time zone. For some, this new situation takes some time to be recalibrated. So my idea of creating Yes Jet Lag, this new jet lag inducing patch, which turns the intangible jet lag into a household objects, is to return you to your normal sense of dislocation at your home. At a time when many lack access to healthcare and the right to be treated equally, this new product balancing things out by helping the elite jet sector feel a little worse. And I want to, do a special thanks for my good friend Chris Wu for helping me with the design on this project as well. So this project features 50 emerging New York-based artists, and you can see in the map that I guess I'm not sure, but I guess each artist will get like 10 or more locations throughout the New York cities that they assign. and just, just some fun pictures. Now let's jump from moving objects to moving images. Thinking about the idea of time is a really tiny thing to do now, because everyone's talk about how all these disruptions and the lack of usual time markers make it really hard to track time. It's interesting to think about counting too, because the only way we can measure, say, the impact of this virus is through the number of people who died. Only then we are able to quantify and understand. Now we're in this time of social distancing and lockdown when everybody is isolated from each other and everything is canceled except for Zoom.
Perception of time, that is, temporality, in a way has been made to seem like something normal. But what happens when you're out of sync with what's normal? You have to be in sync. You have to sync up with the way that time works. If you don't, then you're dysfunctional. You're not considered to be a functional person. Unless you're a newborn baby who doesn't have a biological clock. Otherwise, it'd be a little problematic if your biological clock does not sync with the clock on your wall, following the trajectory of the sun. Before modern lives, you need natural light to do things. Now we all have an artificial sun installed on our ceiling. We have conquered and escaped the circadian rhythm that once governed our daily being. And the pandemic has removed the momentary events of our life. Graduation, birthday, wedding. All these major life events that we used to mark time are suspended. Time just continues in its path. So in a way, it's no longer necessary for us to have, especially during the pandemic, a clear marker of time. But these types of perceptions are fading now. We're not experiencing time like the way we did.
When the virus travels from body to body, people are not traveling as much, so they rarely experience jet lag, which time is felt in the body. Under jet lag, the body becomes tired because you felt the time zone that you came from, even though you're no longer in that time zone. And your soul, maybe it get left behind. Upon arrival, soul must be away like a lost baggage. What about your soul now, when you're not allowed to travel? When you don't know when would be traveling be possible again? Companies like Facebook have said that their employees can work from home forever.
What does staying at home in a semi-tropical city forever mean? How long is forever?
So now I want to jump to another project that I did in 2015. North Pole, it's called North Pole Futures. North Pole Futures is a project about selling promises. I was going on a C residency program called the Arctic Circle, which let me travel within 10 degrees of the North Pole. In order to fund this very expensive residency, Ali Wong, my investment manager, who also happens to share the same physical body with me, offer collectors the chance to commission customized work of art in advance. The project opened at P exclamation on April 12, 2015. Collectors could pick 3 things from the pre-selected list. The first thing is a date between somewhere between October 7 and 18, AM or PM. The second thing is a color. The third thing is a weird word that, English word that pre-selected by me. They pay for it first without knowing what they would get from me. They were basically buying a piece of paper from me. On the contract, there are small terms. One of them was basically, whatever trash I make for you, you got to take it. There's no refund. And if I die there or got eaten by the polar bear, the contract would not be valid anymore. So don't go after my family. And this is the wall across the one that, you know, the contract was on it, the opposite wall. As I said, the collector made the selections, sign a contract, and pay in advance. But the price for each contract is actually different. And the price was determined by a very compressed calculation that factors together weather conditions, snowfall, sun cover, moon illumination, and other random variables. So if a cell was made, then, you know, a very small percentage, around 7.7 to 10% of the cell would be donated anonymously by me to a nonprofit organization. So I'm very interested in action that actually have a real engagement and real interaction with the world. Even though the basic of this project premise is about, you know, not fitting into the economic model that currently prevail in the art world. The exhibition also feature video interviews with selected experts, including sorry, someone called Ken. Can you mute yourself, because I'm having the feedback from you. Sorry. So the exhibition actually also feature video interviews with selected experts, including an art dealer. Actually, that's Michael, our special guest. That was when the first time I met him, because I needing to do this interview. So yeah, including an art dealer, and then a commodity trader, a pawnbroker, and a fishmonger. I got inspiration from them by learning about the nature and techniques of valuation and pricing in the industry. Instead of, you know, thinking about letting the market absorb my work, I wanted to employ the market as a part of my artistic process. I'm trying to invent alternative model for a healthier cultural ecosystem by redefining the collector-artist relationship. And I was happy to have be able to convince 7 collectors to be my patron for this project. So now let's fast forward 2 years time in the same space, P-exclamation, in 2017. It's between March 8 and April 12 in my solo exhibition, Futures Again. So I basically display all the results of the journey, like the 7 commissioned work, including a new essay film called A River in the Freezer. The complete work hung on the wall as a timeline, ranging from the 7th to 18th of my October 2015 residency. They represent a moment from the past that is now being made visible. So I wanted to focus a little bit more on this one resulting work. So on the 2nd day of my artist adventure, I asked 8 fellow travelers, which include a mix of artists and scientists, to stand in a circle facing 8 cardinal directions while holding my pinhole cameras. The battery for digital cameras die out very easily in the extreme cold condition. So I thought that it would be fun to work with pinhole cameras, since pinhole camera only require light and time. Both the performance and resulting photo became the realization of October 8, 2015 PM ArtAsiaPacific goal. For me, another interesting thing is that I feel like time is very valuable there because the daylight is so much shorter and very limited. So we lost about like 20 minutes daylight every day. And my fellow travelers also had their own projects going on. So convincing them to help me with my project is like a little tricky. So also because there's no, North Pole money or anything like that, so you can't even pay for their labor. Money doesn't really matter over there for us, because there's no place you can really spend it. There's no Wi-Fi. You can't even go do some sort of online shopping. I end up proposing that if they agree to help me, in exchange I would give them each of them a soda massage, which I'm very good at, for the exact amount of time for their performance. Plus they got to drink. I bought this like Japanese whiskey. I mean, I don't drink alcohol, but I drank it. I bought it because like people say that, oh, that's exotic, and you said you should bring some alcohol with you. So I share the whiskey with them. Somehow, I found that whiskey is a kind of like North Pole money there. I also make a film. It's called River in the Freezer from 2017. And that is like heavily inspired by the world's northernmost settlement called Long Yebin, where by law, no one is allowed to die. The film combines direct and found footages to mediate upon cryogenic Long Yebin, the manga character Cygnus Yoga, National Science Foundation Ice Core Archive in Colorado, 19th century global trading in ice, Camp Century in Greenland, a subglacial US project for research and secret nuclear warfare, and a color wavelength theory in regard to ice, and many like other small topics.
Cygnus Yoga. Yoga means glacier. Glacier means ice river in Chinese. How can you put the river in the freezer?
Hundreds of thousands of people produce glaciers. Glaciers can move, glaciers can fall like very slow rivers. Glaciers are archives that hold information about conditions on Earth over hundreds of thousands of years. Intelligence, your cylinder shape. Samples of ice from glaciers and analyze the dust, minerals, ash, gas bubbles. Human pollutants are half collected in the slow for millennia. Glaciers contain science and ash flow.
I just show like a very short clips of the film. So again, working with my musician friends, composer Kyle Oppenheimer and singer May Will, I was finishing this educational karaoke piece just as the news break out that the Trump administration was planning to hugely cut the budget of the Environmental Protection Agency. The film is around 25 minutes long. I want to talk about one last project, and then we can move on to the Q&A. In 2018, I started renting a studio space in Manhattan's Chinatown. I want to talk about this banana man who runs the fruit stands downstairs. I was told that many of the landlords in Manhattan's Chinatown do not give their tenants, including this banana man and the vegetable ladies next to it, any kind of official rental contract on paper. Nevertheless, they have maintained business relationships for decades. So they believe that the concept of face worth more than a piece of paper. Eating one's word looks so bad to them, and cause like huge damage to their reputation and social currency, so they won't do that. So this really interests me because I want to understand what a promise could mean over a long period of time. What happens if I have a contract that lasts for 99 years or 999 years? Because language changes over time, the contract we enter in 2020 might not mean the same in 2119. The original contracting parties will be dead. How should I tailor this type of projects? What should I consider? Now, like moving on to so now I want to talk about my solo presentation at Art Basel Hong Kong in 2 years ago, yes, 2018, yeah.
How long is forever? In legal contracts, genetics, art, and our personal lives, we often employ expressions like in perpetuity, everlasting, permanent, even immortal. Yet the meaning of these terms is different in every situation and often alters in response to changing circumstances. My new work traces this conundrum across history and into such current biotechnological fields as gene splitting and reverse aging. Works include sliding box wall photograph pieces, double-sided drawings on hinges, a DNA sampling station, and a film, which I'll talk more in the next slide, all designed to encourage audience participation on the molecular, physical, and intellectual levels.
All works from this project are available for acquisition in 2 different ways. Like either you can choose to buy them outright and own them forever, quote unquote, or you can rent them on a 99 years lease, preserved in a paper contract and on strings of DNA that lasts 700,000 years, supposedly. This is actually film stills from my other film called Uploading Consciousness to Lotus Wood. Actually, 9 months after I showed it at the Art Basel presentation, the Chinese artist He Jianhui said that he just created the world's first genetically edited babies. And of course that run into, sorry, and of course that run into a huge trouble for him too. Again, the film, again, structured in the karaoke-inspired sing-along format, switching, between documentary and music video style content. I mean, of course, a lot of people will ask me like, why are you so obsessed with running subtitles? And you know, there are lots of reasons why I'm so obsessed with that. But one of the reason that it got me started is because like, I feel like, you know, like it's almost like, you know, if I ever have free time, if I have more, you know, extra time, I like running in the evening. And running for me is a form of, you know, moving meditation. It is intense, but then I feel really soothing. It is like a physical, I feel physically tired, yet mentally and emotionally recharged. I like the running subtitle in karaoke because I like the idea of running with time. You know, following the running subtitles is like a very intense experience for your eyeballs. But I think, you know, learning the research information is somehow intellectually, you know, fulfilling. So here's the DNA sampling station where visitor, the chick swab were converted into the PCR product, which could then send it out for DNA sequencing if the visitors want to do that. Or they could actually keep the DNA as an object, storing that in a freezer where the DNA can, you know, literally last forever. I mean, under the condition that your freezer can last forever. DNA, the newest information technology, is also the world's oldest. If we think about this within the context of the growing digitization and archival fever in the art world and beyond, DNA data storage is in fact filling the gap between archival technologies currently in use and enduring digital repository of the future. While we tend to oppose the analog with the digital, the physical with the virtual, the future might just return to one of the most analog, most physical things in our world, our body, and then natural data storage. I want to see if it's possible to have, you know, an altruistic exchange within an art fair context. I'm basically giving out free artwork, which is made with that person's DNA. I'm from Hong Kong originally, and I was made in Hong Kong. I grew up in Hong Kong. I'm very Hong Kong, where I grew up in Hong Kong, where every single corner and gaps is very valuable. It's very expensive. Like informed by my that informs my decision to transform this tiny project booth into a multifunctional space, incorporating a list by song, a karaoke lounge, and a DNA sampling station. I also didn't really want my booth to be just a showroom. I wanted to be a social space where the audience could actually interact with me or the scientists. This is the first and last page. This is the first and last page of the 99-year list. So on November 16, 2018, I signed one of the 99-year leases with my artwork with my tenant. I said to him, unless other arrangements are made, my yet-to-be-made daughter and future grandchildren will collect my work back on November 16, 2117, and a late fee might be applied past the due date. And then he replied, my tenant replied, saying that, and my yet unborn great-grandchild will be instructed not to be late returning the work to your descendants. I was talking with Michael, the Michael that we have as special guest today, and he told me that in the late 60s, early 70s, the Japanese start buying lots of impressionist paintings, and some of them worried that the certificate of authenticities would be lost. So they attached the certificate on the back of the painting, just to make sure the painting is real, quote unquote real. So I was so fascinated by what he told me, And then I thought that, oh my God, if I can make something like, if I can make like a shelf or like a photo space within the structure of my art piece, and my collector or the vendor, my tenants can place the 99-year lease in that structure, that would be so nice and so organized. So I was just so in love with that idea. And of course, that's how this piece come to be with that like photo space. And you can see my friend Ashley Wong is actually taking out the 99-year lease from the photo space. The photographic sliding box wall pieces and the double-sided drawings on hinges are all, of course, again, require not just the eyes, but like you can also use your hand and body to move them. Here's a sample, in the middle of the picture, there's like a little white dot thing. It's a synthetic, it's basically a synthetic bio company and code synthetic DNA with a 99 years lease. But later on, I decided not to, like, I was thinking not going to work with like a bio company because I do want to do it on my own. So I talked to, the scientists at the synthetic biology department in Colombia, and I wanted to actually do it by myself. But unfortunately, last year when I was going to do it, like I came back to Hong Kong, and then I somehow, now I'm staying in Hong Kong for a little bit longer than I thought. So I still haven't like actually, get to work on that with my own hand, which I'm planning to do that, once I can travel back to the US. But for sure, time is a very important element in my project. But I will also argue that my project is somehow more than time and money, although monetary transaction is involved. My interest is to explore an alternative and hopefully healthier art ecosystem by turning collectors into patrons. Instead, just thinking a lot about, instead of buying an object from the artist, can a collector / patron give, the financial or other support to an artist's practice that they believe in? I like to pose the question, what is work that a collector is collecting nowadays? It is the object, the experience, the relationship, or the email exchange. So if you're a collector, I'd like to turn you into a patron. Let's talk at the end. If you are a non-collector who is interested in working with me for other interesting project, I will consider your proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Can you close the share, or we can keep this, so when we talk about certain work, we can still go into image and maybe
Is Michael
video.
here or he's sleeping?
He's here. Let me unmute Michael.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm wide awake, never went to sleep.
Okay, that's good. That
Thank
means
you.
it's not too boring for you, right?
No, it's fascinating because I know some of your works very well, because I think I could probably call myself a patron of one or two of them. I had enormous satisfaction with my family when we engaged with your Arctic North Pole project. What fascinates me particularly, and I suppose it's because I spent my life as an art dealer, is having felt even over the last 2 decades that something was going to happen in the 21st century that would definitely change perhaps the nature of what art was, and also the nature in which art is going to be delivered. And it seems to me that you epitomize the new artist, if that's not a corny expression, who is synthesizing all of our experiences, but still remaining true to the basic aspect of what art is. But you are creating new ways of seeing and new ways of thinking. When you were talking, it reminded me of what Duchamp said, that no artwork exists unless it's being seen. It doesn't exist without the viewer. That the person who perceives the work makes the work exist. And it seems to me that you're, even if they're not performative works, engage us in very vital and immediate ways. As you said, in Art Basel, you wanted to make that space, which I experienced, into a social space. And my involvement with your work, which I'm privileged to have had it in one or two pieces, to have been asked questions by you and to be able to participate. But beyond that, it's exciting to me to imagine that my 20-year-old daughter's granddaughter is going to come and return my 99-year leased work to your grandchild, maybe, in Hong Kong. But the way that you think is fascinating to me, and the way that you present your thoughts too, because you still make things, it's not entirely conceptual. For me, historically, I felt when I was a young art dealer, very, very excited by things that were extremely experimental in the 60s and 70s. Art and technology, Robert Rauschenberg's experiments with art and technology, conceptual art, certain aspects of that. And it seemed to me that that sense of iconoclasm, being excited also by technical and scientific advances, had somehow been lost in the last 20 years when art became monetized. And I think that you're also showing a route away from a market system, which is based on the object as the artist making a tangible asset. Because the explorations that you made starting in 2015, your explorations into future value, for instance, and what I loved was your juxtaposition of me talking about the value of fine art with an investment banker and with a fishmonger too, because we're all concerned about what something is going to be worth tomorrow. And so I find being involved with your work is not a passive thing for me as a patron. It's very stimulating. So I thank you for that. And Gogo, I thank you very much for allowing me to be an part of this. Very exciting.
You're too kind, Michael. But yeah, I feel like I'm probably taking like the financial support from the patron, but also making them work for my projects. But Gogo, you want to
Following Michael's comments in terms of form, I do have a question about form for Ali. So one of the aspects in your work that quite fascinates me is the karaoke sing-along video, because I think I first saw your work in the form of that karaoke video at Art Basel in Hong Kong, or maybe earlier than that, because in Miss Place I already saw your window frame. But anyway, karaoke to me was a very ambiguous form, which I think can speak to what Michael talked about your works. On one hand, it's participatory, it's conceptual, but on the other hand, it's a thing of itself. Karaoke has that nature to me as well. So on one hand, it's very dictatorial. You have to follow the words, follow the time, speak exactly what you are supposed to say. But at the other time, it gives you a stage, a microphone where you can have your voice coming out loud. So in your work, he does has this struggle of whether I should participate or whether I should be dictated by the work. I want to ask more about the nature of the work and how do you see participatory, the audience participation, and how do you see your work?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I honestly, like, if I'm the, I don't know about the other artists, but I'm like, you know, I can give you an answer now for this moment, but then maybe like after 1 year and I will visit what I have been thinking about, then I will have like completely different answer. But I will try to answer that as of today. I think, you know, as I mentioned a little bit, it was it was kind of starting with this somehow like a poetic, a little bit poetic, like romantic idea about, you know, like how can we run, you know, run with the time, and, you know, end up from like the physical thinking of like the body running with the time, going to like the eyeball running with the time kind of idea. It's like basically like a very silly, you know, simplistic idea. But then of course, like thinking about karaoke, you know, it is fascinating because I feel like most of the people, I wouldn't say every single one, but most of the people, I'm sure that they will have that experience, like going to karaoke with friends. It's like a very bonding experience. It's also like a very, you know, like de-stress activities, because when the moments that you are, you know, you're picking up the microphone and then you're about to sing, that was the moments that, you know, you somehow like you somehow is like going from yourself, but then you're trying to be someone else. That like there's some kind of like transformative like moments, you know, like you're wanting to be this like cool like superstar for a few minutes. So I think that somehow is John is here. I can hear you.
I can mute.
Is it okay?
John. Okay, he muted himself.
So John interrupt me, so those transformative moments. But I think there, you know, at the earlier stage when you see the clips that I show in the presentation, the short one, actually that was, I didn't think too much about, you know, like I didn't think too much about like really letting people participate in that. I was more thinking about, you know, how can I find this container that I can put all these like ideas, all these small, you know, experience, memory, and stories into one thing that at that time I didn't feel like painting or using my body to do a performance can do that job for me. It doesn't serve the purpose anymore. So I was thinking about, oh, maybe I can try this. And of course, during the North Pole Future project, when I'm actually in the Arctic Circle, I really was kind of thinking a lot about travel lot. So at the beginning, it wasn't really about, you know, thinking about making something that entirely with karaoke, but it's something with like song and memory, and how I thought the idea of like travel log is really beautiful, because like, you know, like you don't really have like a GPS back then, right? You just like, you don't really have you might not have a map with you, but then the travel log is like, if you remember this song, then you remember how to navigate. So I thought I really was in love with that idea. And then, but later on, when I think about song and all this experience, so it ended up like, it makes sense for me to actually try out the karaoke format. But of course, later on now, when I think about my lecture performance, which I tried to do a little bit earlier about the jet lag-inducing boss project, that was about like letting other people to also voice in, like, even though the running subtitle is set by me, but I somehow feel there is something like political in that thing. Like I set that out, it doesn't mean you have to read that. You can like create your own thing. So there's something like, then kind of turned this karaoke format thing becomes this like a vehicle of like democracy, or because it allows people to have their own voice in it. Like, does it make sense to you? But, sorry, it's kind of messy, but yeah.
Speaking about democracy, I always have this question, whether you will consider in the future to allow audience to sing out your music videos.
Yeah, I think I would want to try out that. I think from the essay film, moving towards to recent years, like this year or last year, that I kept trying the lecture performance series, that is like a natural progression, that maybe for the next step that I can actually invite someone to perform the piece. Maybe I wouldn't necessarily to be the main performer per se. I don't know. What do you think, Michael? Would you want to be, would you want to be actually engaging something like that, or you rather just like, come on, I'm not going to do this?
I would say that there's one thing that terrifies me beyond anything else, and that is karaoke. I once had to go to a Ginza karaoke bar with a very, very important Japanese client, and he forced me to get involved, and it was deeply humiliating to me, by me, for me, because my client, I don't want to digress, but he didn't speak English, so I thought I might have a slight advantage because the songs were in English. And it turned out that he could sing exactly like Frank Sinatra, in Frank Sinatra's voice when he was singing. But I cannot sing. So if you asked me to do it for you, I think I probably would be prepared to humiliate myself again for art's sake, for the sake of art. Yeah.
AKA no. Michael say no. But yeah, I think I will, but thanks for that question. I think it's a really good question that, again, I think I have, oftentimes I feel like the ideas that have been with me for a long time, but it's just like from time to time, I just like go back and forth, and then I revisit that. And then, sometimes I talk to my friends, and then that inspire me to think about other things as well. Yeah.
I want to talk more about the North Pole project because it seems like a very important turning point for Ali. And this question goes to both Michael and Ali. How did you guys become friends? I know that you met each other during the North Pole project in the discussion of value. And I was wondering, how did Michael's specialty expertise in modern art contribute to Ali's thinking in terms of your own artistic practice? And then what do you guys talk about?
Well, I can do the first part, and then you can finish up. You can make up the stories wherever you want to. Like, I first met Michael because I was needing to do I wanting to understand valuation, like how someone insert price on something, like how do you quantify something? So I talked to Prem, our friends, who is also the curator and the owner of the gallery P-exclamation. So he was saying, oh, maybe you should, talk to Michael. He is a dealer, and then he probably can answer some of your questions. So that's how we start. But then I really do remember the first time I walked into the gallery, and then I was actually a little late. And then when I got there, Michael was like, oh, I thought that, you're not showing up. You might be like too afraid to just like come here. And I was like, no, I just like was a little late. But then, so I did the interview, and actually I keep even clips of the, the fishmonger, the pawnbroker, and Michael's part, and then a commodity trader to be a mixed kind of style. And I put it back in the show when the North Pole Future was opening. Yeah, that was how we met. But Well, of course, like later on from time to time, you know, this I consider collaboration, but I don't know if like Michael consider collaboration, but or maybe I consider this is like a very important like artist therapy session for me. Like I have a lot of like unresolved question on my head, and then when I really really need help, I would just somehow sometimes I would email Michael. I would say, oh, can we actually get breakfast? And then he would usually be very kind with his time and then say, sure. And then maybe he didn't know it's about therapy session, but I do just really want to talk to him about certain things. And then, you know, he very often can give me advice on like, you know, from art historical back trajectory to see certain things. So I think that's how we become friends. Do you agree or you don't? Or
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think, you know, you came to ask me about the value of art, and I'd written a book called The Value of Art. But you are the only artist that came to me who wanted to talk about the value of art, but not because you were concerned about making objects that would or would not become more or less expensive in the future. You had a much, much more probing, dynamic, all-encompassing approach. And I think that what really solidified my fascination with your work was when my wife and I and our daughter as a family decided to purchase in advance one of your afternoons. I think it was in the Arctic. We had actually been to Antarctica on a trip, and we were excited that you were going to the North Pole. And I mean, you did describe it when you were talking about your work, but from the point of view of a patron, that we sat around the room I'm in and the laptop I'm using, the three of us, we put in your program. I mean, you gave us colors, you gave us words. We made choices, which were perhaps in some cases random, but we made specific choices. And we enjoyed watching the algorithm come up with a price. And we knew that that price was going to be different based on what we had chosen. So we as a unit, as a family, basically gave you some direction, but still we had no idea of what was going to be the result. And frankly, when you came, and I have to say this, you know, not everybody's going to expect you, or you're going to be able to deliver every work of art, but you came to our home and you showed us what you had made. And it was very, very moving because it was comprehensive. It was a video, it was a story written or typed. There was a narrative, there were visual aspects to it. It was both, it was clear, it was concise, and it was very, very much a new idea, a new experience. And I thought that here is somebody who is, as I said it before, you are synthesizing a lot of different aspects of our life. And what we are all going through now around the world will change the nature of everything. And I'm not being dramatic or apocalyptic. I'm just simply saying there's a shift. And when that shift is, when the lever is moved, it has got to be the kind of work that you're doing, or the work that you are doing, that will be the work that expresses the lives that we're going to lead, that is going to be reflective. You're reflecting to me, you're reflecting the future, and in all aspects. So. I don't know. I enjoy talking to you. You like to talk to me, and I think that I was very tickled by that you picked up on the idea of the certificates. I have my lease. I have my piece, and you know, I think it's very refreshing. What you're doing is very refreshing. I don't know how to describe it, you know, other than that. It's
Fine. But actually, there was one topic I do want to somehow learn more from both Google and YouTube. Actually, there was one time when Google, like when we were on the phone, she asked me this one question. It's like, is it? Did you ask me why do you choose like text-based work, or I can't remember exactly the wording, but is it why do you choose text-based work to do so much text-based works?
Sort of, because we were talking about this turn in your work, because in the earlier piece, maybe manifested a little bit in the face mask Qipao piece. It's more performative, it's more bodily based. In our friend's Harold's word, it's more intuitive. And then I think to me, started from the North Pole project, it became something that's much more text-based, more cerebral, and then it jumped around in different topics, including biology, immortality, DNA, information collecting, and then also contractual relationship. So why this shift, and why did you pick text, something that is in movement in your new series? Started from the North Pole project, I think.
I thought, like, when you asked me that question, I was like, maybe because I'm not a curator or like I'm not an art historian, so I never think of like the labels, like how, you know, why it's like text-based, and I start to like think more, and I was like, oh, true, it's a lot of like text in it. But then I thought that it would be nice to also like direct that question to Michael too, because I think you also work with a lot of text-based artists before, but for me, when I first think about like text-based, I sure there's a lot of text, but for me, like text-based art is more like when you take out all the elements and the text still can still stand by itself as a piece of work. So for example, I will like, first of all, I will thought of like text-based will be like maybe like John Sarah, or like, you know, artists like Lawrence Wiener, like kind of text-based artists. And then I thought more, maybe I will make myself like more language-based artist, but I would want to hear more from Michael, actually, you know, how you think about text-based, or basically I'm directing Google's question to you. Like,
oh, this is very interesting. This is fascinating because I don't know, you know, the formal use of the terminology. I did an exhibition almost 50 years ago called Words, and I chose paintings by contemporary artists that had words in them. It was very easy to do in those days. Warhol, Lichtenstein, a lot of the pop artists. I started off as a poet, so I'm very interested in words in art, but somehow I'm not interested in language. I don't know if that makes a distinction. And I don't want to offend anybody, but Joseph Kossuth's work, which I think is about language, doesn't interest me at all. I can't even get there. Jasper Johns, I think, is about text somehow. So if there is a difference, I'm on the text side, not the language side. So I find it that when Ali is using text in her work, to me, it doesn't stand out as text. It is necessary and seamless to that work at that time. So I think with other artists, I find it, I don't know, Jenny Holzer perhaps is more about language. I don't quite know how to describe the distinction, but I think that if I put it in another context, I see Ali as an artist whose practice is not limited to any tool in the garage. She has a huge garage. It's the world. So she's going to pick up one tool one day, one brush, one tube of paint. It might be text. It might be music. It might be a development in science. It may be a feeling. It may be emotional. It may be scientific. It doesn't. I don't think it matters. I mean, it matters what she makes of it, but I don't see her as making these conscious choices to pick elements to be, as you said, in a compartment. Does that make sense? I don't know.
If I may try
Maybe
to interpret what Michael means when you define a art piece as about language, maybe it's the time when the artist was very consciously identify the words as an object, as his or her artwork. And when you define an artwork is about text, maybe it's when a time that words are in collaboration with other medium and form and more.
Yeah.
I think so too.
No, when I have experienced Ali's work and it has involved text, it has never seemed to me that the pieces all fit.
Mm-hmm.
That's what matters, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're talking about an abstract painting and blocks of color or figurative paint, the things, do they fit? Do they not fit? Do they make sense? Well, they don't have to make sense, but are they affecting? And her work is very affecting to me and effective.
Yeah. So let's forget about text and try to talk about other aspects in Ali's work, because it is not just about text, not just about writing words. One thing that I'm also curious, also starting with the North Pole project, I think, is this fascination with the pharmaceutical industry, with biology. I think it begins also with the North Pole project. And then very interestingly, you're putting this under the contemplation of time. When you're thinking about time, you're talking about immortality, talking about DNA, and how information can be preserved longer than a human lifespan. And then you're also extending this also to the lifespan of, for example, Hong Kong, and then thinking about the value of artwork, the contractual relationship in terms of dealing artworks. So I was wondering how this fascination of biology came about, because I also see a little bit of trace in the face mask project when you're wearing the face mask as a dress. I can imagine like dots of saliva attaching to face mask, carrying DNAs of different people, and then you're walking around with them. So there's a connection between your earlier work and your more recent pieces. But can you talk more about that?
Yeah, you asked really good question, Gogo.
Thank you.
It's very good and it's very difficult too. I really thanks for, really looking at my portfolio very closely and drafting all them. Like I can try to answer, for example, when you ask me about, basically you're asking me about the obsession with time. If I try to answer like bit by bit. So if you're asking me, about the obsession with like time, movement, I feel like that, my obsession, it's true that it has been, I feel like it has been with me forever. It's in my DNA. That even when I'm thinking about long time ago, like I don't know, 15 years ago or so, when I was still interested in painting, I feel like it is a lot about time, because I was really enjoying spending time. I feel like, the idea of like my hand is like spending time with the materiality of the painting is very soothing for me. I mean, even up till now, I still do some painting, And I still can see, you know, when I see the painting, I don't just see the painting as like this object thing. I see the painting as this, like, I can see this like layer of layer and layer and layer of time in it. So I feel like it's ever since when I starting, you know, maybe in undergrad, I'm already very obsessed with different aspect of like thinking about time. But of course, like there were a few years that I was very obsessed with like using my body to experience real time. You know, for example, when I was in grad school, I was very, very into using my body to insert my body in public space and see what will happen, that kind of idea. And then, you know, plus later on, I was also interested in like orchestrating like performance by, you know, working with other performers and, you know, how thinking a lot about documentations and stuff. But then I guess like try to answer like now, like why is all this like thinking about time and movement and all this, it might be because like, so when I was still in school, my teacher kept telling me this one suggestion over and over and over again in one semester. Like my teacher, Jessica Stockholder, she used to be the chair of the department. And every time, you know, we will meet her regularly on weekly basis. And every single time she come to my studio and then she just say that like, she was like, oh, you know what, you should like start learning, or you should start trying to write something, you know, about your fascination about time and stuff. And then I told her that I was like, well, my English is like probably the worst in my class, so how can I write something? But then she really insists on that because she said that every single time she come to my studio, she really enjoyed talking to me and learning about all these different like small connection and between ideas and how I perceive time. And for her, she think it make more sense for me to start my writing project. But I didn't listen to her. I thought, I kind of like was like, I really respect you as an artist, but I'm not sure if I can, you know, I'm going to take your suggestion. So I really didn't work on any like writing project or any like film project, research-based project until actually much later, like 4 years later. Then I start to feel like it makes sense for me to work on language and like write things out. And the biology part, I think it is, I'm just very fascinated with, I mean, philosophically about how you know, what's the perspective that you can view on life. So I think it makes sense, like biologically, you know, like is basically the study of biology. It is about the study of life form. So I think I'm like consciously and like not consciously interested in that already, but it's just didn't really, maybe I didn't say it in my statement before. I still very fascinated. I have a few friends. He probably is not here today, Yun. That we, you know, it's similar to my relationship with Michael. I often talk to him and, you know, about biology related stuff. Recently, through him, I also start talking to this cell biology scientist in UC Irvine, and it is about, you know, like energy and frequency that I'm like thinking a lot about this day. But yeah, I don't know if sorry, I didn't know if I answered your question, but it's just like my random thought that, you know, when you talk about that, you know, I'm interested in like different aspect of time, like time limit, right? Like how we quantify time and yeah, idea like that.
I think we're almost time for Q&A, so everyone please feel free to unmute yourself and join us in the conversation, or simply put your question in the chat box so we can read them out loud, and Ali and Michael can respond to them. And for the moment, please allow me to ask my last question to both Ali and Michael. I also want to touch upon this idea of performance in Ali's work. Because there are so many layers of performance in your work. On one hand, you have the karaoke, where the artists perform, or possibly in the future, the audience can also participate. But then there's also different layers. For example, the alter ego of Ali Wong. You have your own agent in the North Pole project. Or just now, we have an alter ego of yours appearing for a short period of time. And then there's also the DNA collecting station at Art Basel show, or the contract signing station at the North Pole project. So there are different layers of performance that I was wondering if you can talk more about. And I also want to ask Michael, comparing to performance arts a few decades ago, what do you see special in Ali's work, or is there anything you want to say in terms of performance art in Ali's work or comparing to other artists' work?
Michael, you can go first.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think I used the word performative first in this, in this colloquy, but I think what intrigues me and fascinates me about Ali's work in that sense, and what to me makes it different from the tradition that began perhaps with Alan Capro's happenings, is that I don't see her work as being in any way theatrical. There's no idea to me of entertainer and audience, or group of players and audience. The performative aspect is, well, this is one right now. We're engaged in one, to me. It seems like that. And when she invites the public to her, you could say, her laboratory in Art Basel, there's a performance aspect, but she is not standing on a stage. So I think that there is and there's this very much about her work in general. There is a sense of, there's a democratic sense to it. There's a sense of equality. There's very much a essential humanity, where she is actually, I think, extremely humble as an artist. And because she is part of the work, and she has 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 dimensions, but none of those are standing in the middle of the stage of her work. So the ideas are strong, she herself is strong, but she also produces things, whether they're images or things in frames, or DNA that I will one day put in my freezer, which I hope will last 999 years if there's not another storm where I am and there's a blackout. So I think that she's moved this idea forward of performance. It needs another word. I don't have it at the moment.
Thank you, Michael. I think it's a very good point. Ali, do you want to respond, or should we go into other questions?
I guess I'm just interested in, like, again, it might change like next year, but as of today, I still think that why I would like to be an artist, or why I chose to be an artist, is because my art practice is basically a way for me to learn something that I'm interested in. Like, for example, I'm so bad with, like, when I was younger, I'm so bad with like science stuff. And then I'm like really not good with, like, I never have like a musical training. So those become, something that I'm very interested in now. And the writing, I don't think I'm good at writing, but I end up taking my teacher's advice, like, you just write and then you edit and edit and edit again and again and again. Then one day it might become like something more readable. So yeah, I don't know. I think the performance part is that if like very generally, maybe my earlier work is slightly more reacting to the real time, but the later on, like recent years, I actually do more lecture performance. That is, you know, I have the running subtitle with me. That's more like slightly more stage, but again, you know, I would still think that there are lots of room to explore that format. So I don't know yet, like, and I guess I don't want to know. Like, I think not knowing is like always a good thing.
Already have a lot of questions and comments from the audience member. I would like to first share a comment from Yang Yuan. Yuan says, thank you so much, Ali and Michael. Ali, I thought you are systemizing humanity's impatience and putting it into the freezer, or you're trading your patience for our impatience. It's an illuminating relation you put us into life to life. Thank you. I think it's a very beautiful comment. And Yang, if you would like to talk more about patience and impatience, I would love to hear more, like from your way, what do you mean by patience and impatience? Because I definitely have my own understanding in terms of this, but would like to hear more from you. And then we also have two questions that is more related to contracts. In the North Pole project, Anissa is asking, is the 99-year contract transferable? And Ash is asking, can you tell us more about how the pricing algorithm works?
Yeah, the 99 years contract is actually transferable. Like, for example, Michael can actually transfer that to, I don't know, Beatrice, his daughter, but it will have to be the remaining years. So let's say Michael only for 9 years, so his daughter can only for another 90 years, like that. And then the second question is about the pricing of the 99 years project, right? It is.
Yeah. And there's another audience who's asking to see the algorithm, the graph. Maybe we can move the slide to the graph again.
Oh, the graph. Do you mean this one?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so Ash is asking how the algorithm works.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that in my presentation. It's actually based on, you know, there's like data that you can look up online that I basically used 20 years data in that regions. For example, like if the snowfall was quite bad, then the price will go up, kind of thing like that. Or if the sunlight time is shorter, then the price might go up too. So it's like not, you know, it's not, it's just by, you know, how difficult that I would be making it work, kind of.
A question that is very much related to this piece is a question from Dan Dan. He says, he or she says, sorry. Also, I was wondering if Ali could talk a bit more about the role of the investment manager persona. Did she exist only in the web as the image you shared just now, or was she at the gallery during the contract signing? And if so, how did your body practically switch between the manager character and the artist character?
Yeah, well, of course, like the artist and Ali can never show up in the same room together, but usually the styling would be, you know, with the artist. But then
I never knew who I was dealing with, frankly. I didn't know which one I was.
Oh, you're always dealing with the artist, actually, like the because.
I'm just kidding.
for the communication part, I think like Ellie and the gallery is more the one that who's like doing the back and forth like communication, but the signing of the contract is always the artist.
And also a question from Ingrid, with the reasons of a majority stake of Ancestry.com, which also trades in DNA, so to speak, and thinking about other forms of body surveying, facial recognition, for example, what role, if any, does surveillance play in your work?
That's a really good question too. Actually, I think like when we were at the ArtAsiaPacific projects, like we did have basic information of that person when they were doing the cheek swab, because when they come back to pick up the DNA, we will have to let them know like which one is for which person, right? But then later on, actually, when I am, some of them, they decide to donate part of the DNA to me, then I didn't actually keep the name that attached to the DNA for that project. But I think that's also like, so it doesn't really involve like a personal information in that. For me, at that time, it was more like this DNA container I was more interested in, this like DNA storage I was more interested in. But that's a good question that maybe I will think more in the future, like because it is true that nowadays, like, you know, why those DNA tests is so inexpensive is because they do need your data, right? they do want your data to create this pool so that in the future that actually they can run the statistic more accurately, I think. But I think, yeah, thanks for Ingrid's question.
Okay, another question from Gigi. You're interested in the concept of time contract relationship. They are flowing ideas. I see your works reflecting the essence of life itself. Do you see yourself moving from different roles when making your works? I guess it's because of the jumping around of topics and ideas. Do you sort of change your persona or change your role as an artist when you're researching into all these different ideas or writing about different ideas? I guess that's what Gigi means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, well, again, the answer as of today, sometimes I'm like confused who I am too, so I can't answer your question. But sure, there are certain modes that I feel like I'm more Ellie, and there's certain mode I'm more like the artist. For example, like Ellie is always the safety net for me. You know, I always try to be more organized and try to see if the things make sense, because I do have a lot of like ideas spinning on my head sometimes very quickly, and I think that is something important for me as an artist. But then those ideas might not, you know, sometimes might not make sense, so I have to somehow like calm myself down and rethink about what's going on. So I think that two, like in and out, that two role is to somehow try to say if that, you know, if Ellie give a green light, then I feel more comfortable, go ahead and like keep working on this crazy idea. Stuff like that. Like, does it make sense to you?
And lastly, we have we have more questions, sorry. A question from Emily. Kit Yi plans to travel to the West Texas desert next year, really? Is that the plan?
Yeah. Later in November next year.
For the Chinati Foundation Artist residency. I would like to hear about her ideas of what she will work on, from semi-tropical Hong Kong to Arctic to oceanic borderlands, deserts. Is there a plan brewing?
My plan always change. So, well, but I can talk a little bit about I'm sure that, you know, ultimately it will change, but my proposal was about was about this idea that I had before for one of the lecture performance that, when the cloud, like, passing through the political border, then who owns that cloud kind of idea. But then I was very interested in Marfa because they have a very dramatic weather condition there. So the air, the wet air and the dry air were always like conflicting. So I was like proposing the idea was that I was very interested in the political border, keep exploring the political border idea that, between Mexico and like US, but at the same time, I was also very interested in the meteorological border that, we don't see, but we feel like there. But I'm really sure that, like it will change ultimately. Yeah. Should we take like one more?
Yeah, one last question. So
I'm going to sleep.
one last question from Heman. Hi, Ali. Can you talk a little about your method in selecting starting points for each of your works? Is there a gap between a selected starting point and the point in which you decide to jump into making a work?
Yeah. Thank you, Heman. Heman is actually also a very good friend with me and Michael. So we talk sometimes as well. Hi, Heman. Man, all these questions are quite difficult. But maybe for me, it's hard to talk like, I just think about punctuation, right? Like punctuation when, sometimes you want to take a pause, then you use comma, but I feel like mine is maybe like a constant little comma in between, but then I couldn't tell. Sometimes I couldn't tell where is the starting. Well, I can tell when it comes to presentation of a show. I can tell you this is my show that I did in which year. But I feel like idea-wise, or what I'm truly interested in is never, it's never like box like this. It's always like floating like a river, kind of like it's constantly just like moving on and on. I don't know what I'm thinking today, could be different tomorrow, and I embrace that.
Always movement.
Always moving.
All right, I think it's almost time. So thank you everyone for joining us and for all of your wonderful questions and great comments. And thank you, Ali, for sharing your works. And thank you, Michael, for staying so late with us and for sharing your knowledge. It's been great. Good night, everyone. And have a good day.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Moving fans. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Gogo. I think it's a really great talk, and I have a lot of questions that I need to work on now. Okay, time to go to bed, Michael.
A lot of fun. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Ali. Bye. Thank you, Gogo.
Have a nice day and good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Enjoy the day.